Hello, friends and fellow board gamers. Welcome back to Board Games with Rob. In this video, I'm really pumped to bring to you a game that I'm really excited to have, and it's my second time owning this game, but first time owning this edition of the game. So, as you've probably guessed, if you've clicked on this video, I'm talking about Alien Frontiers. Now, what's so special about Alien Frontiers? Well, as many of you are going to know, Alien Frontiers has been out for 15 years. It first was published in 2010 as a result of a Kickstarter campaign. In fact, Alien Frontiers was the game that kind of kickstarted Kickstarter as far as board games go. Now there's so many, there's hundreds of campaigns, Kickstarter campaigns with board games out there, and man, I'm on the fence when it comes to it. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about the process that goes behind the scenes in publishing a game or putting a game forth on a crowdfunding campaign. In fact, we've got lots of them now. Well, more than one, I should say. There's GameFound is a big popular one on top of Kickstarter, and so there are plenty of people that have put a lot of thought and have shared a lot of their experiences. Coming to mind is Jamie Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games. He has some articles and some video series, I believe, at least a really nice article that goes through some of his thoughts and experiences with running a Kickstarter campaign. There's people whose profession is all about tutoring people through and guiding them through designing a Kickstarter campaign. It's not anything to be taken upon lightly these days. A Kickstarter campaign can fail for a number of reasons, and among them, and not just the content of the game. It could be a fantastic board game, but if you haven't put enough thought into the visuals and the content of your campaign, if you haven't reached out and maybe given prototype copies to people to review and have some links to people that are backing it, and by backing it I mean supporting you, and anyway, there's a lot of thought that goes to a Kickstarter campaign these days. But anyway, I digress. Alien Frontiers kind of paved the way of Kickstarter campaigns, and Tabletop Tycoon, they've had this property for quite some time, and it's changed a lot through the years. A lot of the artwork remains the same. The mechanics remain, for the most part, unchanged. But there's been a lot of expansions and some deluxe components made. I mean, the colonies alone have gone from just discs to really neat 3D dome colony pieces. And anyway, what I'd like to do is go down to the table. I'll give you a little bit of a high view overview of how the game plays, with particular attention to some of the expansions that you're going to find in this copy. There's a lot of how to play videos out there already on how to play Alien Frontiers, but I'm going to kind of go into what's included in this edition. I'm going to provide my thoughts on the game as a whole and whether or not I feel you should buy it. And so anyway, let's go down to the table. Let me show you how to play and what's included in Alien Frontiers Edition X. All right, I've got the game set up for 2 players. The game does play 2 to 4 players, and there's a set of red pieces as well as green. I've got the blue and the yellow set up. And I will say this is something I was alluding to before, these colonies are really cool. I believe they just started out as wooden discs originally, and they've grown into these pieces that have these domes on them. I'm not sure when those were introduced into the game, but really nice addition. The components, really, really nice. The cards, I have them sleeved. I sleeve almost all of my cards. They're really nice linen finished cards and really wonderful artwork on there. The component, the board, even these faction boards are really solid, really nice and thick, really nice sturdy dice. The region tokens, they're all really nice thick cardboard. You've got some cubes. You've got these field generators that they come out to play with some of the Alien Tech cards. Really nice. The Solarium, really nice artwork, really nice components. In fact, Tabletop Tycoon does a really good job with most all of their games. The whole Everdell series, wonderful components, beautiful artwork. They're very well known for putting out really nice produced products, really nice production in their components and their artwork. Now, I'll briefly at its heart, Alien Frontiers is a dice placement game where your dice are your ships. You'll start out with 3 ships with the ability to get 3 more, and you'll be each round, each player will be placing all of their dice, taking a number of actions out onto the board. The game will end once a player has placed their last colony. In a 2-player game, that's 8 colonies, and with a 3 or 4, it's 7 colonies. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to go over every single rule, but all of your actions are really nicely displayed around the board. Now, that's always been the case with Alien Frontiers. You'll see that each area has kind of a requirement as to what you need to be able to place there. So, for example, the shipyard, you have to place a pair of dice that are the same. And then you'll have player count. By player count, it will dictate whether or not more people can go there. So only in a 3-player game could 2 people take advantage of the shipyard, and only in a 4-player game could there be 3 pairs of dice out there. Otherwise, those dice will stay out there until the next round, unless there's some sort of technology that you can get to allow you to kick people out. You've got the maintenance bay. That's where your ships will be built. You'll take one of the dice from outside the board, put it in the maintenance bay area for next turn, which is when you'll get that. Now, the colonist hub, that's where you're going to, once you place a die out there and spend some resources, that's where you're going to put your colony out. And then each time that you put a die out there, you'll be able to move that die up to 3 times in one round. You'll be able to push this colony out to eventually it's going to pop out, and you're going to be able to place that on a region. Now, if you have a majority in in a particular region, you're going to get, well, first of all, a point for putting your colony out there, and you'll move up the point board there. But then whoever has the majority of these will get another point, as well as this card. And what I've always liked about this is the Highland Plains. These are all named after, the Bradbury Plateau, after very famous science authors. My favorite all-time book series is The Foundation by Isaac Asimov, and Asimov has an Asimov crater. I always tend to rush for that. I really like it. Plus, it's a really, all of these are going to give whoever owns it a really cool ability. So this one's really neat because every time you take that colonist hub action, you can move an extra space when you put a die out there, which is going to kick those colonies out really quick. There's ways to get solarium by placing dice out, as well as your ore. There's place to get tech cards. There's ways of stealing stuff from other people. And so pretty much everything out here on the board is all about getting more dice, about getting resources, getting cards, getting your colonies out, taking ownership of these tiles so that you can then place colonies out, get points. Your score track is always a state of where you're at in the game. So for example, if I was to get a point for having the majority of colonies in here, let's say yellow comes in there and ties it up, I no longer have majority. This card's going to come back, and I'm going to lose the point for having majority out there. So as I said, the point track is going to be kind of the state of where you're at in the game. And then there's a couple end game scoring conditions that you're going to track through and see if you win. Some objective cards, which I'll get into here with the expansion, will broaden that. And then the person with the most victory points at the end of the game will win the game. So let's talk about some of the expansions that are available. And right out of the bat, I want to talk about these faction cards. And there's a whole stack of these. I mean, look at all these. And what's really neat about these are they A, provide an ability, an ongoing ability for you, but they also provide another dice placement spot for not only you, but for other players to place their dice there. And as you would expect, if anybody ever places their die there, you're going to get some solarium for them for having placed their ship there. But what I really like what they did with this is they gave and provide cards for each individual faction that's out there that, and apologies for the glare, it talks about and shows how those different factions work. And I really like this. It's kind of like a little instruction booklet page for each tile that's out there. So for example, here's the profits of the artifact, which is this card here, and it talks all about how this ability plays. And this is all about using artifact cards. In fact, you wouldn't play this faction if I didn't have this other expansion in play. So let's talk about this one. Each player is going to get a couple of these from the start. And you know what's really cool about this race here, or this faction, this is a way to get other faction agenda cards, and then also use those agenda cards as currency for being able to do a variety of different things. For example, getting some solarium, getting an ore, or exchanging for another agenda card. But what's cool is these are going to provide you with either an in-game ability, or not ability, but objective, or an end game objective to race for. So you'll be able to score a point if you get the in-game right away, you reveal this card, or at the end of the game, if you have completed the end game objective, then you could also reveal this card and get a point. Points you don't get a lot of points in the game. I mean, we got maybe 10, 12. I think one person got 13 or 14 points. So getting an extra point or two is crucial to winning the game. So these agenda cards, really cool. The other one, probably my favorite one, and it's maybe a tie between the factions, and there's this whole sideboard that gets added, this outer belt. What's really cool about this, other than adding its own region here that you can place colonies, is you have this asteroid belt, and this is another deck. And these cards are really pretty powerful. You're going to be able to place dice out here, and typically you're going to have to place usually 2 die out here, and these cards are pretty powerful. Now you have this die that you're going to roll. Everybody's going to roll it at the beginning of the turn, and there's either the image of an asteroid or it's blank. I think 2 of the sides are blank, and the rest, all the other faces, will have that image. And if you roll an asteroid, then these are going to cycle, and then a new one would pop out. So, and also if somebody purchases any of these, they're not automatically refilled. The only way that they're going to refill is if that die gets rolled and they cycle. So you're not always going to be guaranteed to get these cards. In fact, there could be a couple turns where you roll a blank die and these will stagnate for maybe a round or two. But these are really, really cool. Like, I mean, you can discard them for one-time uses of getting some resources, some solarium, some ore. Now, one of the things I will say is when you get them, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be putting them face down, and you won't get to use them until next turn, at which point you can just, as a free action, use the card. But there's some pretty powerful things on a lot of these cards. One, from simply just a victory point, which I already said is really, a big thing, getting a victory point. There is, the ability to change die values in some of these. I would say there may be stronger versions of the alien tech cards that probably everybody is used to getting, which can be powerful in and of themselves. But I like how these outer belt asteroid cards are continuously, so long as you roll the die, cycling in and out. So those are the 3 big expansions that are included in this: the factions, the outer belt, as well as the agendas. And they really work well together when you play. I've played the game with everything combined into one, and it just makes for a really, really fun time. And I'll get more into my thoughts here in just a little bit. All right, folks. So that's more on the additional content than it is on how to play. Although Not much has changed with the rule set other than the additional content in those 3 different expansions. Now, the agendas, I'll talk about each one individually. Agendas, I could give or take those. I could play or I could leave those out. They kind of give you something to race towards and give you something to work towards and on top of your colonies. So they can be fun. You're limited in how many you get, but the orbital market, which allows you to place 2 dice of equal value, will allow you to gather, in addition to resources, it allows you to get 2 new agenda cards, and you can never have more than 3. So there is a way, just with the base game and just playing with the agenda expansion, to get more of those. So that does provide some, just some fun things to start driving for early and throughout the game. And you can get rid of ones you don't want to get or you don't think you'll ever get. I can give or take it. They're fun. They add a little bit extra to the game, but it's not something I need to play with in the game. Now, I will say the other 2, I almost won't ever play the game without. I really like the factions, and there's a whole lot of them to choose from. I mean, there's, I think, maybe 16, 14, anywhere between 12 to 16 different factions. Not only do they provide you with some really cool abilities, but they provide other dice placement spots, not just for you, but for everybody. And who, in a worker placement game, who's not for having other places to place your dice? I mean, that's just a gimme in the game. So factions, really great addition to the game, and I love some of the powers that they add to the game. The other expansion that I almost will never play without is the Outer Belt one. I love that mechanic of the asteroid cycling. It's kind of so thematic. It's like having an asteroid belt, in or around the planet, and they're not always moving. You're getting cards and they're not automatically refilling. So it was funny because whenever that dice hit and it kicked out another card, man, everybody was going to look at what those cards were, at that popped out of that asteroid deck. So really fun, and they're not easy to get. So it provides a little bit of a dilemma in your utilization of those dice. Do I spend them for resources, or is that really cool card out there that I want? And so I'm going to use some of those dice to be able to get that asteroid cards. So if I was to rate them, gosh, it's a toss up between the factions and the Outer Belt. Maybe the factions inking it out just a little bit, because not only is it giving you special powers, but dice placement spots, and then the Outer Belt, but they're really, really close, and I would not play the game without either one of them. And then agendas, which are really cool, but I don't have to play with them. But a really neat addition to the game. And it's for me the penultimate copy of the game. Now, I've seen some chatter online with regards to certain promos maybe not being in and out of it, and those die-hard fans of Alien Frontiers, I don't know what might be missing that's available for the game that might not be in this. For me, who's not a collector, but somebody who really likes this game and wants to get at the table, I really like it. Now, I know it is a higher price point. It's retailing for about $150. Now, would I be willing to pay all of that? This is a review copy of the game that I got. Would I be willing to pay $150 for this game? And I don't know. Now games go for like 60, 65 bucks these days. So I would have jumped in and gotten that. And then you're buying expansions. And then to be able to get 2 expansions, at, $30 a pop, I think this is well worth its money. I think you would be paying more than that if you were to piece part this together, and this is all in one box and fits nicely in that box and provides a lot of content. So it's going to be a personal decision to you whether or not this is your type of game. If you've played Alien Frontiers before and dropped out of it and want to get back into it, this is probably the version to get. If you already have a copy, you're probably not going to want to get this being the price point what it is, you've got most of it, and you're probably just wanting the expansions anyway. But for somebody that doesn't have the game, hasn't played it, is new to the hobby, this is probably the version that you're going to want to get. I would rate this a 9 out of 10. This is a great game. I love worker placement. I love Euro games. I love dice placement. I love all the things that this game throws in there. I love the quality of the components, from the colonies to the real nice dice to the linen cards to the rule book to the artwork. It's just a grand slam for Tabletop Tycoon on this one that I would highly recommend. Folks, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it's provided you some information to make an informative decision on whether or not this is the game for you. Give me your thoughts about Alien Frontiers. Did you originally kickstart the game back in 2010? Is this a game that, if you already have a copy, are you interested in this? I would say probably not. Um, What's your thoughts on Kickstarters? I'm on the fence. I'd rather have the game now, and I hate doling out money and then having to wait for that game that, people say may or may not ever fund. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I've done enough research on the company. I know if it's going to fund. So I've not lost out on maybe one game in the 10 years that I've been kickstarting games. And but I understand there's a lot of angst for people giving a lot of money. I mean, these Kickstarter editions of games are expensive, and you're dishing out a lot of money in the hopes that you're going to get something. What are your thoughts on Kickstarters? More than anything, have fun gaming, and even more important than that, folks, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.